Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into something really special. We're unpacking the core leadership principles of the absolute legend himself, Coach John Wooden. Specifically, we're going to distill the pure gold found right in chapters 7 through 15 of his foundational book. But look, we're not just here to soak up this knowledge for ourselves. The whole goal of This Explainer is to give you a mental framework, kind of like a cheat sheet, so you can take these exact concepts, explain them to a total layman, and teach them directly to your own teams, your employees, or honestly anyone you lead. Think of this as us building your ultimate mentor's playbook.
So let me just throw this out there. How in the world do you build a championship team, smash historical records, and create an absolute dynasty without ever actually talking about winning? I mean, it sounds totally impossible, right? We are all so conditioned to think that great leaders are just obsessed with the prize, always pointing right at the finish line. But Coach Wooden, he took a completely, radically different path. And that path starts with a rule that honestly feels incredibly counterintuitive. Just think about this quote: emotion is your enemy. Now, we've all seen that stereotypical fiery leader, right? The one screaming from the sidelines, using pure anger or this wild hyper-enthusiasm to motivate people. Well, Wooden fundamentally rejected all of that. It's fascinating, because he actually believed that emotionalism makes a leader significantly weaker, not stronger. It really is a night and day contrast. On one side, you've got your typical coach, completely obsessed with the scoreboard, riding this crazy emotional roller coaster on every single play. And on the flip side, you have Coach Wooden, stoic, process-obsessed, entirely focused on teaching. Actually, he viewed his role as an educator first and foremost, and honestly, this is the exact mindset shift that you need to make, and it's exactly what you need to teach your team. So, to build this playbook today, we're going to cover 5 core lessons: ignoring the scoreboard, mastering your emotions, empowering the entire team, perfecting the little things, and finally, redefining the ultimate measure of success. All right, let's jump right in. Part 1. Ignore the scoreboard. Focus on the effort. Now, I know it sounds borderline crazy to ignore the score when you're in a highly competitive environment, but focusing on the prize, that actually distracts you from doing the really difficult, meticulous, nitty-gritty work required to actually get there. The crucial takeaway here is this: winning is simply a byproduct. It's true. Coach Wood never even mentions winning to those legendary UCLA players. Literally, not once. He just demanded their absolute best effort because he knew full well that if they took care of the effort, the score would just take care of itself. So when you're training your own team, you've got to teach them to focus entirely on the process. Part 2. Master your emotions. Remember that quote from earlier, emotion is your enemy? Well, this analogy brilliantly illustrates exactly why. Wooden used to compare team performance to the Swiss Alps. I mean, the Alps are gorgeous, sure, but they are full of these incredibly sharp peaks and super deep valleys. You absolutely do not want your team's performance to look like a mountain range. Instead, you want a steady graph line that just continuously, reliably rises. Those artificial emotional spikes, they always lead to inevitable letdowns. Consistent, maximum production absolutely requires emotional discipline. So here is a screenshot-worthy summary you can literally take straight to your next team meeting. To teach this concept, you have to explicitly reward effort over outcomes. You have to actively model emotional control yourself by suppressing those artificial spikes. Whether you're winning or losing, it doesn't matter. And crucially, you really have to train your team to treat adversity as an asset. It's a tool for learning, not a reason to hit the panic button. Moving on to part 3. Empower the entire team. Look, a leader is really only as strong as the unity of their group. Just think about the number 10. Coach Wooden constantly drilled into his players that it takes 10 hands to score a single basket. The person actually taking the shot, they're just the driver of an Indy 500 race car. Their success depends 100% on the pit crew backing them up. You have to make sure the folks doing the quiet, behind-the-scenes work in your organization deeply understand their direct connection to the team's ultimate success. And that brings us to this really fascinating concept of attainable greatness. You've got the superstar, right, like Bill Walton, but you also have the backup, like Swin Nader. It is just incredible to realize that Wooden taught that Swin achieved his own personal greatness simply by pushing Bill Walton to his absolute limits in daily practice. Swin could have easily started for practically any other college team in the country, but his role at UCLA was to make the team great behind closed doors. Greatness has to be attainable for everyone, regardless of their title. So how do you pass this on to your managers? First off, you gotta actively go out of your way to praise the quiet performers, the ones making sure the trains actually run on time. Second, rely on the carrot way more than the stick. Sincere approval builds immense, deep-rooted pride, while punishment really only invokes fear. And third, sit down with your people one-on-one and clearly define what greatness actually looks like for their specific individual role.
Part 4. Perfect the little things.
Listen to this. There are no big things. There is only a logical accumulation of little things done at a very, very high standard. There's this famous example you can totally share with your team. Coach Wooden literally spent the very first day of practice teaching his elite scholarship athletes exactly how to put on their socks and shoes. I mean, why? Because a wrinkle in a sock causes a blister. A blister means missed practice. And a missed practice, well, that means a lost game. It's like a giant puzzle where every tiny piece matters.
Take a really close look at this actual historical document. This is Coach Wooden's literal minute-by-minute practice schedule. Notice how meticulously planned out this whole thing is. 3:30 to 3:35 is one specific drill. 3:35 to 3:40 is another. He lived and breathed the mantra, make each day your masterpiece. He and his assistants would literally spend 2 whole hours just planning a 2-hour practice. That's dedication.
And why on earth was he so incredibly obsessed with time? Well, it comes down to this number right here, 210. That is the total number of practice hours he had for an entire season. Just 210 hours to build a national championship team. Let me tell you, minutes just evaporate if you're careless with them. You have to teach your team that failing to prepare is absolutely preparing to fail. Every single meeting you run should be as meticulously mapped out as this schedule.
And here's the kicker. Even amidst winning all those national championships, Wooden flat out refused to coast. Look at item number 4 on his notes right here. Work a lot on team fast break. Go, go, go. He just never, ever accepted the status quo. As a leader, you must train your managers to stop defaulting to no when they're presented with new ideas and start asking, hey, how can we improve this?
All right, so here is your final playbook for teaching this daily process. Number 1, obsess over the small fundamentals. Find your company's version of the socks and shoes. Number 2, map your team's time by the minute. Do not let a single meeting go to waste. Seriously. And number 3, continually seek significant change. Encourage the team to bring you fresh, even contrary ideas.
And finally, part 5, the ultimate measure of success. Think about it. If we completely strip away the scoreboard, how do we actually know if our team has won? Well, Coach wouldn't formalize this standard on paper. Reading through his notes here, he wrote that success should absolutely not be based on the number of games won or lost. No way. Instead, it's based entirely on what an individual did in comparison to their own personal abilities. He never let the media, the fans, or the opposing team define his success for him. Which brings us to the absolute ultimate lesson that you must pass on to your team. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to become the best of which you are capable. I mean, that is just profound when you really sit down and think about it. If you can honestly look in the mirror at the end of the day and say you gave 100% of your effort to become the very best you could be, you are a success, period. That is the standard. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. You now have the mentor's playbook. You understand that emotion is the enemy, that every single role is completely critical, and that the little things absolutely dictate the big things. So, how will you define success for your team tomorrow? Take these concepts we pulled from chapter 7 through 15, share them with your organization, and start building your own quiet, process-driven dynasty. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.